And butts.
I turned on the microphone right when you said that.
What about the silly goose, am I right? What about the silly goose?
Well, now y'all know.
Yeah.
Silly goose.
No, you're silly goose.
No, you are.
Mike, you have lotion? I have some, but in my back.
Oh,
Well, that's not very helpful. My hands always are dry since I have to wash them 24/7 now.
Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. You like
My government class last semester was 33. And all three of the semesters are pretty low. So it's nice. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started here. Good to see you guys again. These are just like home. Then there's these three. Riley Blackford's claimed that chair. Yes, for Riley. All right. We got a couple different things that we're going to work through today. I've got some of these up here, but I want to pick back up with where we left off yesterday. There were two things that we talked about in yesterday's class. We spent a lot of time at the beginning talking about the president's speech. You guys had a lot of great questions. I appreciate that. Just to kind of piggyback off of that, I think I had said to you guys yesterday that in part of his speech, he had said that he had invited Democratic leaders to the White House on what would have been yesterday, and that did happen. The meeting lasted for about 45 seconds. It did not go well. If you watched any of the news, the Democrats emerged from the White House first, and so they kind of got the microphones first. And Speaker Pelosi, she came out and said, "Oh, it's cold out here. Not much warmer in there." You know, right off the back. And so she, her and Leader Schumer just kind of described the environment. Of course, you know, and I said this yesterday, when politicians go out, they say stuff, you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt. I don't care what party they're in. I don't care who they are. I mean, they're going to give you their version of it, right? So you got to, what I thought was kind of funny, though, is that Leader Schumer, Chuck Schumer, described it that they all sat down. They were in the what they call the White House Situation Room, which you're never going to see anything live coming from there. That is generally a closed-door room in the White House where, the media is not allowed in there. That is where if something were to happen, the president will get called down there. He'll meet with his military advisors, and they will work through it. You know, whatever crises might be going on. But they decided to have the meeting in there, and Schumer described the meeting as the president came in. He basically said, "Look, if I reopen the government, are you going to support my wall?" And Speaker Pelosi said no, and so the president slammed the table, got up and left, and that was the end of the meeting. And so I watched it. I thought, okay, you know, he's obviously giving his version of what happened. But 5 minutes later, the president tweeted. He tends to tweet sometimes. And he basically said, "Yep, that's exactly what happened." He added in that he had told Pelosi and Schumer that the meeting was a waste of time. He wasn't going to sit there any longer. So later on, Mike Pence came out with some of the Republican leadership from Congress, and he just said, the president made his point clear. They're both digging in, right? I mean, they're digging in. So if this shutdown continues into tomorrow, which there's no reason to think it won't, then it will go down in U.S. history as the longest shutdown that we've ever had. I'm not sure that that's something we should be proud of. We're making history, yay. I'm sorry, what? I don't remember when that was. We can find out. But you did that for your current event, yeah. I'm not afraid to say it. Yeah, so you're gonna let us know. But so that'll be 21 days, which is pretty long. I mean, it does. Today's day 20. I mean, it doesn't. I guess maybe it doesn't sound that long, but when you think about the fact that people are relying on paychecks, we're hurting.
Longest
I guess tomorrow would tie it. And then Saturday. Oh, Saturday would count. I think they go by business days. So I guess we would have to go into Monday. Yeah, 95 would have been President Clinton. So you know, this is going to continue on. Who knows? It is interesting though, because I feel like you know, I feel like sometimes when Speaker Pelosi comes out, she's got a little bit of a smile on her face, and I can't help but think that's because she feels like she's got a little bit of leverage in it. You know? But that's politics, is dealing with leverage. And when the president had gone on, he was on live television, and he said, "Look, I'll take blame for this shutdown. It'll be my shutdown." That was probably not a great thing to say, you know, especially when people are hurt. You know, we're seeing the statistics and the polls coming out showing a vast majority of Americans want the government in action. They want the government to be working. So the shutdown is not something I think that most Americans are okay with. And you know, to be honest with you, I think the president's kind of painted himself into a little bit of a corner because it's, you know, it's wall or bust, and it's difficult. Plus, when you see a report coming out that Customs basically brought in the Marine Corps and said, "We want you to go." We have some physical barriers that are built right. A lot of it's steel fencing. And so they basically brought the Marine Corps down and said, "We want you to attack this wall with ordinary tools just to see if you could get through it." And so they went after it, of course, first with a saw, and they buzzed right through it. They carved a giant hole, and they didn't have to work very hard to do it. So you know, that doesn't, I think, speak well to the effectiveness of the wall. So I don't know. It's I'm hoping it's going to finish up quick just so these folks can get some paychecks, but we'll have to see. You know, this is good stuff for current events. Don't forget that's something to be mindful of. All right. Yesterday, kind of getting back to the class itself. Yesterday, we took the other half of class, and we started talking about, you know, that each of us have an attitude, that we have an opinion on politics. You know, that was sort of my big point that I made yesterday, that it really doesn't matter if you're over here, you're that person who, you know, there'd be no brainer. Of course, you will always vote. You know, that you follow politics, you watch the news, or you're over here where it's the exact opposite. I could care less if I vote. I don't care what's going on. Anywhere in between, wherever you are on that spectrum, you are demonstrating a political attitude. And so we spent some time talking about some of the factors that help to build that attitude within us. And I wanted to kind of bring that list back up, because you guys did a really nice job of there we go. All right, you guys did a pretty good job of coming up with that entire list. I think the only one that maybe we didn't have up there was education, right? So that gave me a chance to tell you the story of lovely Dr. Rouse. Right? And so just kind of remembering this list, and that each of those, big or small, they have an impact on the attitudes that we have. So now what I want to do is I want to take the next step. Okay? How do those attitudes generally play out when we talk about Americans reacting to their government? And at that point, I have to introduce this vocab term. And you know, I had said there will be times when you'll get terms and things that you need to know. I promise you this is a term that you need to know. It's defined really simply as the way that Americans think or feel about politics. Right? I mean, an ideology is just how you think and feel about anything. If I were to take out political and write the word religious, then that might describe whichever religion you subscribe to. In this case, we're talking about thinking and feeling towards politics. And I have never met somebody who doesn't have some form of political ideology. And that's the thing, is I think people think, okay, I don't care. I don't find government interesting. I don't find politics interesting. So I wouldn't have an ideology. I don't think or feel anything about government. My answer to that is malarkey. Right? There is something in everybody's life that they do care about. I'm convinced of it. And I talked to I've got a buddy of mine who he hates it if I start talking government and politics, because it's not because he feels differently than I do, it's because he just doesn't care. And so I'll ask him, then what do you care about? And he'll say, well, I care about my kid. I care about my wife. And I said, well, right there. I mean, do you really think that your government doesn't have something to do with the lives of your kids and the lives of your wife and your life? Oh, yeah. So then what do you want the government to do for your children? Well, I'd like for them to make sure they get, and then I'm like, okay, you don't even have to finish that sentence. You do care. You care more than you think, all right? So I'm convinced that everyone has a political ideology. And for me, the best way to explain how this works to you is to use this visual right here, is to set it up as a table. And I'll kind of run you through how this table is set up. But, the point I'm trying to make is that every single American has a place somewhere in this table. Every one of you has a place on this table. Now, wherever you are doesn't have to be where you always are. As you grow up and you have more life experiences, we talked about that yesterday, your position on this table may change. And that's okay. That's normal. That's growing up. Okay? But at all times, every American has a spot on this list. Okay? So here's how this table works. And if this doesn't make sense, please let me know and I'll explain it again. Okay, you guys have done these in math, right? And you may have to help me out here. Was this the X or the Y? Thank you. All right. I hate math. Okay. All right, over here on the Y-axis, okay, this is what we would call the economic axis. All right. And so the higher you are on the Y-axis, the more likely you might be to support the government stepping in and telling you how to maybe run your business, or the government setting economic regulations. This could be things like taxes, the government lowering taxes. I always like to say, the government telling you how to run your business. So the higher up you are, you might be okay with the U.S. government, let's say, making you ensure that you're not discriminating against people, proving that you're not just eliminating somebody from consideration to work at your business because they're black, because they're a woman, anything like that. The government making sure you don't do it. Maybe another one would be the government setting a minimum wage that you have to pay your employees. All right, this is the government really getting involved in your business. And so the higher up you are on the Y, the more okay with that you are. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So then down here at the bottom is what, I don't know, there's a lot of different names. I tend to call this like the social axis. Some people call this the morals axis. I'm not sure I love that way to phrase it, but so I think a better way to describe this would be the choices axis, okay? And again, it comes down to government control. All right, so generally the further right on, so this would be the x-axis, right? Okay, so the further right on the x-axis you are, the more okay you are with the government regulating personal choices, personal lifestyles. Doing what has to be done in the name of security. So I don't think it's so bold to say that if you are super, super supportive of a physical wall because you believe it's necessary for security, that might put you a little further over here. If you're okay with, if you want the government to stay out of your personal choices, I think another example that's it's maybe not as hot button as it used to be, but it's definitely an example from fairly current events. You know, we had the same-sex marriage debate that was raging a couple of years ago. The courts kind of settled that now. But if you were more in favor of the government staying out of the choice of who you marry, then you might be more towards the freedom side of the scale. Now, does that make sense? Okay? It all comes down to how much are you okay with the government making decisions for you? That's ultimately what it comes down to. Okay? So we've got these four sectors here, and there are labels that are generally given to those sectors. How many of you have heard the term liberal before? I mean, right? And conservative, right? All right, we've heard those terms before. But how many of you have heard the term libertarian? Okay, populist? Just a few of you.
I don't really know what libertarian.
Yeah, and that's fine. Let's kind of talk about that just real quick here. But you could probably kind of maybe piece this together based off of where they are on the table. Okay, so that label of liberal would describe somebody who is probably more likely to be okay with the government mandating anti-discrimination policies, minimum wage policies, those types of things. You're okay with the government getting involved in business. But notice they're also left on the freedom scale. So they would be more likely to want the government out of your personal choices. Okay? So that's kind of how that would play. They're high on the Y, but they're left on the X. And then on the other side is conservative. And generally conservatives are more supportive of what we call a free market. I don't know if that term came up in econ. Okay? The government kind of let the businesses do their own thing. And then the companies that are successful, it's kind of like survival of the fittest. Right? And so they're pretty low on the Y. Get the government out of our business. But they might be further right on the X-axis and be more supportive of the government doing what it needs to do to promote order, to promote security. Now, there are political parties that generally get attached to this, right? What political party is generally attached to the term liberal? Democratic and then Republican. Okay. Now, we've got these two other terms here. Brayden, you had mentioned I've heard of them. I don't know what they mean. That's kind of how things work here. Notice with libertarian, they're pretty low on government control in general, right? They don't love government controlling business, but they also don't want the government to tell you how to live your life. So that's kind of how that mentality works. Populist is the exact opposite of that, right? You kind of got opposites. They're all about government in all things. I had a student last semester that said, well, that sounds an awful lot like a dictator. I'm not sure that that's exactly what we're talking about here, but the further up and right you would go, yeah, exactly. Now, the further up on the Y and right on the X that you would go, that's exactly what you get. But, this is the populace is all government in all ways. The government's the answer type of thing. Now, where do you think most Americans land on this table, Jade? Yeah, right. It's not there by accident. Most Americans are right here in the center. They have a little bit in them that would maybe be a bit more liberal, a little bit more in them that might be a little bit more Republican or conservative, but ultimately they're right square in the middle, sharing a little bit of all of it. That is not, I think, though, the way that the country is sort of depicted. I think the way that the country is depicted is that everyone is either here or here, and that there's nothing in between. And the reason for that, I think, is because that's where the loudest voices are. And that's what the media is going to pick up. All right, they're not going to pick up on the voice of the moderate. Well, they are now, maybe more than ever, but This is what sells. This is what gets people either really excited or really angry. And that's what's going to make for good TV. You know? But it's unfortunate because I feel like we sort of as a country is that if we hear the term liberal, we automatically think, well, that you must be. Or if you hear the term conservative, you must be here. And that's just not the case. We picked up these labels and we've allowed these labels to sort of say who we are. And so then it's like, you know, if you're more conservative and you hear that term liberal, then that's not somebody we want to be pals with. And certainly vice versa. You know, this is where sometimes you'll hear the term, and this is another term that we probably should know, polarization. All right, that this country is polarized. It's kind of like North and South Pole. We're either up in the north, or we're down in the south. We're either way right or we're way left. You can see that divide right here on this table. Reality is I don't know that we're as divided as people think we are. We just look like it. I really, truly do believe that the vast majority of Americans are still right here. Still right there. So we're going to look some more into this, and actually tomorrow I'm going to challenge you guys with a couple of different things that are going to give you an idea of maybe where you land on this table. All right, so that might be kind of eye-opening, kind of interesting for you to see, but just to highlight how sad and ridiculous I think it is that we've allowed ourselves to be split into these two black or white groups. I wanted to use a tool that I think has come to represent this division, and that is the bumper sticker. Okay? You know, sometimes if you guys drive, you may pull up to somebody at a stoplight, and they've got some bumper stickers on the back. Then every now and then you'll find that car that has like 80 bumper stickers on the back, and if you're like me, you forget to then go because you're so focused in on reading all of the bumper stickers. They care about these things. I want to know what they say. Well, as I drive, if I find a really good political one that's just like ridiculous, I will take a note of it. My wife thinks I'm a little crazy for this, but I'll shoot a note to myself on my phone. You know, funny bumper sticker says this, and so then I'll go and find it. And so I have collected a group of these ridiculous bumper stickers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just let you guys work at your tables, but I'm going to divide this into 4. And what I would like for you and your group mates to do is to decide where do you think on this table the bumper sticker goes. And once you've decided it, I'm going to have you come up and actually tape the bumper sticker up here where you think it goes. If you think that it's, you know, a really liberal point of view and you think it's like uber liberal, then put it way over here. Same thing with conservative. If you think it's maybe more here in the center, then that's where it goes. All right, so put it where you think it should go, and then I'll have you kind of go back and sit down. But I've got these kind of mixed up, so hopefully you'll get all sorts of points of view. Some of these are just really stupid, but some of them are kind of funny. Some of them are sad. I don't know. I got the range here. All right, so here we go. You guys can spread them out on the tables if you want. Kind of talk about where you think they should go up here. And then once you think you got them set, come on up and take them up there. You may find some of these that you really, really don't like. That's okay. They're all pretty ridiculous. Yeah, these are all legit bumper stickers, by the way. I didn't, make these up.
People actually have that on their car?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've seen these all.
These are just so absurd.
Some of them are really good.
Like, these are like very. Some of them.
I didn't divide these up. You guys got one.
Like, Mr. Klein, somewhere in here.
Poor thing. Oh, I thought I had them divided up well.
Like, that's just wrong. That's just wrong. I don't like labeling.
Yeah, I'm not. There's another one I think that they have that says Jesus was concerned. And the funny thing is that the same company probably both,
Oh, yeah.
just so they can sell. So like I said, when you feel like you've got them, go ahead and go up there and start taping them where you think that they go.
Mr. Klein, like, what was your reaction?
I'm always just, shaking my head.
Daily baseball?
Yeah, the daily baseball. Any that you're stuck on? Well, it doesn't seem to favor one party over the other. I think that's that one kind of feels the same way. Those two in particular. So maybe that's more of a sort of fed up, middle of the road American. I'm tired of the one side or the other. So maybe I would go more towards the other.
That's the thing.
You pointed that, or you're all pointing that one. So that one is, I think the way I read it was that it's a disgusted American because like Congress just needs to focus on it.
See, like, Mr. Klein.
So that might not be one party or the other. That might be one or the other. Yeah. That's what it's in.
I just say, I don't really know.
Well, if you feel like you may not have had any, there were one or two that I could have seen that segment where maybe it's where it was like. That one I thought I could see that maybe. So libertarianism is less government and better in all things. Let businesses do their own thing. At the same time, government shouldn't be telling you how to live your life. Oh, now, that doesn't mean that the government should say, "Oh, if you want to avert people, that's cool." That's what like you want to listen. It's all good. Just let you run your own business. Just keep the government out of as much stuff. More of government. It could be. I mean, the gun control is generally more of a liberal position, I think, because you're wanting the government to get involved in something that you think is social. Yeah, but then the question is, Jane, do you think that it's sarcastic? Sarcastic. No one, liberal and conservative, likes Nazis. You hope they don't. But they're saying, well, Nazis said that control works. So do you think that's being sarcastic?
Where do we think this one goes?
No. Nice. Those happen. Okay. Now, once you're done, just have a seat. Take a look at this. It's playing about like you thought it might. I mean, I think if you kind of pull back and you look at the board, the bumper stickers become polarized just like anything else. And I heard several people say, "Gosh, a lot of these are just," I think Braden's used the word absurd. Yeah, I mean they are, but that's kind of where we are because that's what gets attention. Like that's what sells bumper stickers. I mean, you're not going to sell a ton of bumper stickers that says, why can't we all just get along? All right, if you can sell a bumper sticker that says Jesus was a liberal, that's going to be just like this off the wall kind of bombastic comment that you can make. That's going to sell better than anything else. I think it was your table that had that Jesus was a liberal?
Yeah.
And then somebody else had the one that said Jesus was a conservative, right? I told them, I said, I bet the same company made both. Just to help us out. But yeah, we've got a polarized thing here. Some of these, we might be able to move a little bit further left or a little bit further right. We do have some that are right here in the middle. Yeah, this one I thought would probably end up here. It says, if guns are outlawed, can we use swords? That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. But some of these, especially on the far left, far right, give me liberty or give me less Republicans. I think, therefore, or if Trump is the answer, it must have been a stupid question. Then you got over here, DADDD, dads against daughters dating Democrats. It's kind of nutty. Political correctness equals liberal thought control. Yeah, it's good. I know I'm a liberal. Be proud of your country. Yeah, they're pretty wonky. They're pretty nuts. But that's a pretty interesting representation of maybe where it seems like we are as a country. What I would like to challenge you to do is I would like to challenge you to think and to see and to talk with others and see if this is true. If these factors really do help to forge a political attitude in us, if we really are much more in the center than what it seems like we are. And I don't know that we can do that by just talking to each other in here. So what this is my assignment for you is, and you may have heard first period talking about it a little bit, is that I'm going to ask for you to conduct what I'm calling a political identification interview. Okay? And I'm going to send the guidelines around here. If you have talked to first period based off of a really good idea that a student in first period made, I have actually changed it. This is going to be a different form than what first period has, and I will be giving them the updated version tomorrow. I also have a copy of this on the class website. If you lose it, or if you decide you'd like to open it to use it for any reason, then you can do this. But what I'm asking you to do is to conduct an interview with someone. Now, if we go down to where it says student task, I had told you that this person can be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be a teacher if you want, whatever. My only requirement is that the person that you interview has to be at least 20 years old. All right, my reason for doing that is because if they are at least 20 years old, then they should have been able, or at least eligible, to have voted in the last two elections, the presidential in 2016 and the election that we just had in November. All right, the midterm, exactly. All right, so that's why I've set that age limit. But other than that, you can interview who you would like. Now, I would point you down here to the bottom where it says special notes, the last bullet on the page. A person can only be interviewed once. So if you were, I heard somebody over here in first period say, it was like 4 people said, oh, we ought to talk to Mr. Sanders. You can, Mr. Sanders is certainly open. You can talk to him, but he can only be interviewed once by one person. Yeah. If Braden Kane goes and he interviews Mr. Pruitt, no one else in any of the 3 sections of government can interview Mr. Pruitt. Okay, I don't want to have 35 people all turning in the same person that they've interviewed. I'd like to get a wide range of perspectives here, and interviewing the same person 35 times is not going to give us that. Right? So, and that's fine. Oh, that'd be interesting. Right? Now, here's the deal, okay? And I put this down in the notes as well. Okay, you are not, and I want to repeat, you are not asking these people who they have voted for. All right, I tend to think that's a pretty personal thing. All right, if someone, now we all know people who are more than happy to tell you who they voted for. All right, but that is their choice. All right, we do not need to be putting somebody on the spot and saying, so, Trump or Hillary. Now, that's not what we're doing here, okay? What I am interested in this, my purpose in this, listen please. Listen, please. My purpose in this is for you to see, is this true? I'm looking at political attitudes here. And remember my point, my argument, that everyone has an attitude. Everyone has an attitude. All right, so what has built that attitude? Are these things, is this legit? All right, have these things contributed to the political attitude of whomever you interview? So to get this done, I have told you, you have to ask them the questions that I have given you. Number one, would you please identify yourself and how you know me? That's just ID question. Then number two, are you currently a registered voter? Okay, I'm not making a judgment, neither should you. If they say no, okay. All right, that's their prerogative. We don't require you to register to vote. But down in question 3, I'm just curious as to what prompted that decision. In other words, if the person you interview is a registered voter, why did they end up registering to vote? And you may, depending on who you talk to, you may have somebody that says, well, because it's my civic duty, I'm an American, and this is what Americans do. All right, and then you may interview somebody, and I'm going to pick on Lydia here. Listen, I taught Logan. I taught her older brother Logan in class. All right, and when Logan was a student here, we had a voter registration drive. Maybe Logan registered to vote during that. And his answer to that question to Lydia, if that's who she interviews, might be, well, Klein had a voter registration drive. So I said, why not? Okay, that's an answer too. But I'm just curious, why did they register? If they aren't a registered voter, same question. Is there a reason why you haven't taken the opportunity to register? Right, so that's where we're going in question 3. Question 4, have you voted in past elections? Okay, now depending on how they answer this, if they answer yes, please see there. If they answer yes, ask them question number 5. If they have answered question 4 with a no, then ask them question 6. All right, this kind of gets to my point that everyone has an attitude. So if you have voted, what were some of the things that influenced you to vote the way that you did? We're not asking them who they voted for. All right, we don't care about that. Whoever you voted for, what helped to influence that decision? If you decided not to vote, if you haven't voted yet, same thing. What has influenced you to decide not to vote? Right? Last but not least, I am asking you to craft 2, at minimum, original questions that you would add to the interview beyond what I have given you. All right? And if it were me, I would be asking questions that would help me to answer the final prompt there at the bottom. Okay, in that final prompt, you have to say, okay, yeah, you know what? I think that after talking to this person, it does seem like these, or at least some of these things, they do play a role in how people form an opinion. Okay, so, I was telling first period, when you talk to somebody, maybe you ask them, to what extent do you think the television media or social media has played a role in developing your attitude? Don't ask them, does the media impact you? Because then they can answer with what? Yes? No. And that's all you get. Okay, stay away from those closed-ended questions. Stick with open-ended. But, maybe think about that. Does the government shut down? That's a current event. is that impacting your attitude towards God? You know, that's kind of what I'm pushing you to do here. And when you turn this in for a grade, and this is due on the 16th, by the way, I did not put that on here. You may want to write that up there at the top or something. Due on the 16th of January. For this grade, you got to turn in 3 things: the results of your interview. You could either type up what they said, or, and this is where I had the suggestion, I had a student say, well, could I take my cell phone and just like record it and then just share it with you? Sure. You know, that might be the easiest way to do it. What are your 2 original questions? You'll have to type those up. You have to give me those separately. And then, of course, your response to that last question. You could give me all of this on one document. You know, you don't need to do this on 3 separate pages or anything like that. I'll go on the same one. But that's what I'm looking for here as the final product for the grade. Okay? So what questions do you have on what I'm asking you to do? Make sure we're good with it. All good? All right, so this, now the downside to this, I suppose, is that this is something you'll have to do a lot outside of class. So be thinking about that. The 16th will be here before you know it. You know, reach out to people. I have informed the teachers, the staff, the administration that you guys are doing this, and what the rules are. I have told them to not let more than 1 person interview them. So, you know, don't put them in that position, please. If they say, sorry, something got to me, move on to the next person. Okay? All right, guys. Thanks again for your participation. I really do appreciate it.
Well,